why you might need to rethink the way that you brace your core when you deadlift. What's up, everyone? Coach Tony from Bomvex Strength, and one of my lifters today asked me about how they should be bracing their core when they deadlift so they don't feel their back as much. And this is a great question because it can be a little bit tricky as far as deadlifting. We often think about deadlifting with a flat back, but the way that we flatten our back typically in a deadlift is a little bit counterintuitive to the way that we would brace our core, especially for something like a squat. And what I mean by that is when we deadlift with a quote-unquote flat back, what it typically means is creating some extension in our spine, so arching our back a bit like that, and creating some anterior tilt to our pelvis. So taking the front of our pelvis and turning it forward and pointing downward, so there's a little bit of arch to our lower back as well. That flattens our back. However, when we do that, it kind of disengages our core. And what that is kind of a buzzword, but what that means is it takes our ribs and our pelvis and points them in opposite directions. This is not how you kind of utilize our core muscles to create intra-abdominal pressure, which is necessary when lifting really, really big weights. So it can be a little confusing. Should I flatten my back and disengage my core, or should I engage my core and run the risk of rounding my back a little bit? And I am of the opinion that you can do both, but you have to do them at different points in the lift. And this can be very confusing if you've done a lot of squatting, and the way we typically coach our lifters to squat is to kind of undo that arched back position and get used to creating that canister position where we bring our ribs and our pelvis on top of each other and breathe into that to brace our core when we squat, because this position is really necessary to express range of motion in our hips. And if we don't squat this way, the chances of us being able to squat to full depth are somewhat limited. However, you don't really want to take that same approach into your deadlift, and I'm going to explain why. So the position of the bar in the deadlift is in front of us and pulling us down into a flexed position. If we don't create any tension throughout our body or into the bar at all, the path of least resistance as we deadlift is into a more flexed position. The bar is pulling us that way. If we give the bar a head start by over bracing and over flexing and getting kind of down into this crunched position, it's very easy to feel my abs and brace my core in this position. But if I stay there, I'm going to have a hell of a time deadlifting because I'm going to be too rounded. The bar is going to be out in front. And let's be real, if you've deadlifted enough in that round back position, you know, it typically doesn't feel very good on your lower back. However, if we opt all the way for the other end of the spectrum and really flatten our back a lot and get like very extended and get down into our position that way, sure, this might feel tight and might feel like my back stays flat, but at heavier weights, I'm not going to have the intra-abdominal pressure to be able to hold that position. I may be able to start in that flat back position, but I probably won't be able to stay there at heavy weights. I'm probably going to round over anyways. So what's the solution? I think the best way to go about it is to brace at the top and get our ribs on top of our pelvis to a certain degree. Not so much that we're slouched over, that we're crunching down, but just a little tuck of the hips. If I have a belt, if I'm wearing a weight belt, a good way to think about that is making the lower back push flush to the belt. If we stand in our normal kind of resting posture or an exaggerated extended posture like this, there will be a gap between your lower back and the top of the belt. I just want to flatten that out by tucking under a little bit. I should start to feel that bracing feeling in my abs, similar to if somebody were to come up and punch you in the stomach, how would you absorb that blow? That same sort of tension. And from there, I can breathe in this position to create that intra-abdominal pressure, to lock my core and my lower back into place. So I'm in a good brace position, I breathe. Then once I get down in position, I get my hands on the bar, then I want to try to extend my back as much as possible. So now, once I'm down there, I'm going to try to basically do this, arch my back as much as possible, but because I'm already braced and down in there, I'm not going to get into such a severe extended position that I lose my core bracing. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. I'm at the top, brace, breathe, grab the bar, arch as much as I can, and you can see, like I've shown many times before, with light weight on the bar, when I start to extend my back, it kind of floats the bar off the ground. That shows that I'm creating appropriate tension into the bar and within my own body. So it doesn't have to be all braced or all flat back. You can use both strategies to end up in the best possible deadlifting position, to express the strength you have and not have deadlifts feel lousy for your back.